22-year-old Tiernan Darnton was born and raised in Lancashire, England. He lived with his mother and stepfather, Chris. Although Tiernan did not know his father, Chris had been in his life since he was a child, and they were very close. From a young age, Tiernan struggled with mental health issues. He has extreme social anxiety that only got worse, and by the time he was 12 years old, Tiernan had to be homeschooled, which is extremely rare in England. Tiernan stopped seeing his friends and would rarely leave his home. Tiernan became depressed due to his social anxiety and struggled with suicidal thoughts. Tiernan began therapy, and soon enough, his social anxiety got better, and he decided to re-enroll in school by the time he was 16 years old. Tiernan realized that he would have been at a disadvantage as an adult if he did not finish school. Although he was not able to graduate high school, he enrolled in a further education college. This college would allow him to add classes to his resume and make him more employable. Tiernan enrolled at 2 different colleges and ended up dropping out of both of them. When he was 16 years old, Tiernan and his mother began arguing a lot. Tiernan was misbehaving and his mother kicked him out of her house. His stepmother Mary Gregory took him in. Mary was Tiernan's stepfather Chris's mother. Mary was 94 years old and suffered from dementia. She would also get into arguments with Tiernan, and after a while, Tiernan's living arrangements changed from spending some time at his mother's house and the rest at his step-grandmother's house. A year after this living arrangement, on May 28, 2018, Mary tragically died in a house fire. Neighbors heard screaming coming from Mary's home and shortly after called the police and fire department. When they arrived, they saw Mary passed out, steps away from the front door under a table. Mary was taken to the hospital, and for 3 days, she was hospitalized, but on June 1st, she passed away. Fire investigators were brought in to figure out how the fire started, and they came to the conclusion that it was an accident, given that Mary was a smoker and she also had dementia. Tiernan definitively went back to live with his mother and stepfather, but his mental health was not getting better. At 20 years old, Tiernan was referred to an adult mental health center, and during one of his sessions with a therapist, Tiernan made an alarming confession. Tiernan told his therapist that some friends knew things that could send him to prison. He told the story about a party he had gone to the previous year where a game of truth or dare was taking place. During Tiernan's turn, he chose truth, and one of his friends asked him to reveal his darkest secret. Tiernan said he had killed someone, and when no one believed him, he had to convince his friends he was telling the truth by telling them the whole story. As he's telling his therapist the story, he's being very vague with his explanations. The therapist was struggling to put the pieces together. He admitted to Tiernan that he did not understand what he was saying very well but proceeded to ask him if he had killed somebody, to which Tiernan responded yes. After this murder confession, Tiernan's therapist dropped the entire topic and did not ask any more questions, nor did he report the admission to authorities. However, Tiernan was not done talking about it, and during his next session, he brought it up again. However, this time, he brought his stepfather Chris in to listen. Tiernan proceeded to tell his therapist and his stepfather Chris that the death of his step-grandmother, Chris's mother, was not an accident. Tiernan had been getting into arguments with Mary the few months before the fire, and he had grown to hate her. The last fight before she died occurred on the night of the fire when Mary told him she despised him. On the night of May 28, Tiernan walked from his parents' house to Mary's house. As Mary was asleep upstairs, Tiernan put as many obstacles in the way as he could find to ensure that she did not make it out of the house. He started by dismantling the smoke alarms, and he disconnected her telephone. He also pushed a table up against the door so that she could not leave. Tiernan then lit a cigarette and threw it onto the curtains. He left when he saw flames, locked the door behind him, and went back home to sleep. After his confession, Tiernan was arrested in his home, and police collected his belongings. One of the main things was his computer, in which they found awful things by looking through his search history. On Tiernan's computer were Google searches like, "Murderer filled with despair," "I want to cause evil," "Urge to kill again," "I think I'm turning into a serial killer. Please help." They also found documents written by him in which he wrote that he wanted to stalk and attack women, as well as a list of people to kill. Lastly, the main evidence collected by police was garbage at Mary's home. On the night of the murder, Tiernan stopped to get snacks on his way to Mary's house, which they found CCTV of, and pictures of the crime scene show the garbage at Mary's house with the exact same snacks that Tiernan had purchased. Tiernan was charged with the murder of Mary, and his trial was set for November 2021. Tiernan denied involvement and maintained his innocence. He said that his two confessions were big misunderstandings and explained to the jury that he was merely seeking attention. During his trial, two psychiatrists were brought in, and one of them said that Tiernan might have autism. However, the conclusion was that Tiernan's mental health did not play part in the murder. The psychiatrist said that he was 100% responsible. Tiernan was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 15 years.